Alright. Is this thing on? Let me see. Just kidding, I knew it was on. I just feel like that's like a rite of passage for a radio show host. Like, I actually think those were Glenn Beck's first words. Yeah. Is this thing on? He looked up at his mom and he said, this thing on? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, this is my first radio show. My name's Kayla Michelle, and this is The Connection. So, we have a lot to talk about today. But I'm going to talk about life today. And usually when a college kid is going to talk about life, it's usually at 2 a.m. drunk over a plate of lukewarm pizza rolls that you took out 9 minutes early because you couldn't wait. You know, like, what is life? What am I doing with my life? Where's my life going? Am I in the right major? Do I have the right friends? Should I have a boyfriend right now? What's going on with my life? But I'm not talking about my life. I'm talking about life in general today. And as great as those talks are, trust me, I've had a few of them. I just think it's good to take a little bit different angle and talk about it in a different light tonight. Just because I'm going to talk about it in the sense that well, I guess just in the way that people don't want to talk about life. Kids don't want to talk about it like I want to talk about it. I mean, college kids don't. Not even really, adults don't really want to talk about it like this. Nobody wants to talk about defending life. All life. I guess you don't want someone to stick a label on you, I guess. You don't want to be intolerant or what's the word? I don't know. I guess discriminate against people, take away their so-called rights. But I don't really care. I don't care. I think this is something that needs to be talked about, so I'm going to talk about it. And yeah, a lot of people are scared of it. Like I said, adults, even the people that govern the adults that live in this country, and the politicians don't want to talk about it because they won't get elected if they talk about it. If someone says that they believe in defending life, then they can pretty much kiss their shot at any political office goodbye. And even if they do say they defend it, okay, maybe they have a chance. But if they say why, then they need to find another job. So that's why I'm going to talk about it, because I can. So, last Wednesday was the 41st anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling of Roe v. Wade. And the March for Life. The optimist in me wants to assume that most of you have heard of the March for Life, but the realist in me is going to say that you probably haven't. And not because it's your fault, not because you're not educated or you don't want to know, but because the media doesn't give you a chance to know. 90% of people don't know about it, I guess. And some don't want to know about it, but some just don't have really the choice because they're not exposed to it. You hear about Justin Bieber about 200 times a day. Okay, yeah, he was drag racing, he was drinking. Enough. Like, nobody cares anymore. But how many times did you hear about the March for Life? Once, twice, not at all. But thank God Justin Bieber got arrested. Thank God. So, the March for Life is, I guess, like I said, I'm sure most of you don't know. I was talking about it the other day, and I assumed that even my friends knew, and I was saying, yeah, my family's going to the March for Life. I I really wish I were going to. And she said, what is the March for Life? I mean, I know it's in March, and I laughed and kind of shook my head, and then I was like, how is she supposed to know? Nobody's told her, and how would she know? So, the March for Life is a march, that's been held for the last 41 January 22nds, where millions of passionate and dedicated people from all walks of life have gathered in Washington, D.C. to fight to overturn the decision of Roe v. Wade, making abortions legal in the United States. This year, close to 600,000 people gathered at the National Mall, ready to brave the negative 4-degree weather, to march to the Supreme Court, to stand up and fight for the most precious gift that we can give and are given, life. And like I said, 600,000 people gathered there. And if you did hear about the March for Life, I'm sure you heard, oh yeah, a couple thousand people showed up. No, 600,000 people showed up. And it's getting to be more and more every year, which gives me a small little glimpse of hope for our future as a nation and as in humanity in general. I mean, these people come from all across the country just to spend a couple hours giving their voice to the innocents who will never have one. These people, at least this year, were standing in almost unbearable weather just because they believe in something, and I think that's pretty amazing that we at least have that right. And who knows how long we'll have that for. I mean, could be taken away tomorrow. Who knows? But I mean, seeing the immense turnout of people that the march had this year and each year past is slowly increasing, and something that really does restore my hope. So I'm gonna at least start on that positive note, but I do think it's a common misconception that most people in our country think that we live in a pro-abortion nation, and I mean, it's only by a slim margin, but we don't. We do live in a nation that values life, or at least they say they do, they think they do. So, I mean, for the most part we do. I think it's 48% of people said that they were pro-life, and 45% of people said they were pro-abortion. Well, I think they said they were pro-choice, but I refuse to call it that because that's not what it is. It's pro-abortion. If I were having a discussion about the human right to choose chocolate or vanilla ice cream after dinner, then I would absolutely use the term pro-choice, because then it would apply. But in this situation, it doesn't, because it's not a choice. It's abortion. I'm actually from California. I grew up in Fresno, California. It's right in the middle of the state. About 3 hours from LA and 3 or 4 hours from San Francisco. I was born and raised there, and my grandparents actually lived in San Carlos, which is about, I would say, 3.5 hours north of Fresno, just outside of San Francisco. And we were a really, really close family growing up, and being so close, we used to make that drive a lot with them. And as a kid, obviously, I still have the attention span of a housefly, but as a kid was thousands of times worse. So to pass the time, my grandparents would play, countless card games with me. Like any good, fun grandparent would do. But one game that always stuck out in my head was a game I think my grandpa made up, but it was called the opposite game. And it was so simple. He would give me something, anything, an object, a person, a place, and I would have to give him its opposite. And he'd always start really easy with me, kind of like ease me into it and give me like a little warm up. You know, we'd start with chocolate, vanilla, black, white, up, down, salt, pepper. Then he starts to get a little bit harder, like meat, vegetables, and so on. And it's so simple, but looking back on it now, that game taught me a lot, because it taught me that in certain cases, there's no gray area. There's just black and white in certain cases, and I think that this issue is one of them. There's pro-life, and then there's pro-abortion. There's no gray area in between. It's life or death. God didn't tell Moses, go down and tell the people that they shall not kill, but if it's before the second or first trimester, during the first trimester, go ahead, it's fine. No, he said, thou shalt not kill. There's no gray area, and that's just thou shalt not kill. So, I ask you, when I give you the word life, what is the first word that comes to your mind as its opposite? I'm going to assume, I hope that you all, the first word that came to your mind was death. If it wasn't, I don't really know where you're going with that one. But it's death. So you can wonder why I call it pro-abortion, but by calling it pro-abortion, that's me censoring myself, because the next most honest name for it would be pro-death. The opposite of life isn't choice. The opposite of life is death. And these innocent, defenseless babies are not living, nor are they dying by natural causes. So, if that's the case, then by definition, they're being murdered. Plain and simple. And I want to say, well, I want to say that I don't like to use that word, which I don't, because I do think it's a lot, but at the same time, I don't really have a choice. They're not living. They're not alive. They're never born. And an abortion is not a miscarriage. It's not something that happened naturally. So, if you're taking life by force, if I could think of another name for it, I would say it, but it's murder. One woman I think you all should hear about is a woman named Gail McWilliams. If you haven't heard her name, then you should. If you have, great. Gail McWilliams knows that a baby is not a choice. She was married, and the doctor told her and her husband that they couldn't have kids. And that, to me, would be devastating, as I'm sure it was to her. And she basically said, okay, well, thank you for that, but I'm going to leave it into God's hands, and if we're not meant to have children, then we're not meant to have children. And a year later, she was pregnant. And she had her first child. I think it was a son. Healthy. And a little while later, she was pregnant again. And during the second pregnancy, she went into the doctor for just a routine checkup. And she was waiting there, and the doctor came in and said, look, I'm really sorry, but I need you to make a choice for me today, within the next couple hours. He said, you can either choose your baby or you can choose your eyesight, because if you continue this pregnancy, you'll lose your eyesight. And she looked at the doctor and said, well, that's unfortunate, but I don't have a choice. I'm pregnant. There's nothing I can do now. And he advised her to terminate the pregnancy, and she said, well, that's not a choice. I can't do that. I'm going to lose my eyesight, but I'm pregnant. What am I supposed to do? And he again recommended an abortion, and she said, no, I'll lose my eyesight. And he slammed her folder shut and stormed out of the room and called her foolish, told her what an idiot she was and how foolish her decision was. So she ended up giving birth a couple months later to a healthy baby girl, and she lost her eyesight. And that's terrible and wonderful all in the same sentence, because, yes, she lost her eyesight. So she didn't lose her ability to parent. She didn't lose her ability to be a great mother. She lost the ability to ever see her daughter, or any of her other children that she would have. She ended up having 5 children, and to this day, they're all grown, but to this day, there's only one that's married with kids, and it's her second daughter. And that same daughter has given her 3 beautiful grandchildren. And I just think that's an amazing way for God to show her that she did make the right decision. So no, she wasn't ever called to carpool the kids by other moms or to look over math problems. So yeah, she lost a couple things like that, and I sound insensitive, but all she lost is her eyesight. She still had a beautiful life, and she knew she had a beautiful life. Somebody asked her, they said, how can you find joy in life, yet you're unable to see? And she said, how is it you're able to see, and yet you find no joy in life? And to me, it's an incredible attitude to have. That's amazing to lose something like that so unexpectedly, and to still have that positive outlook, and not only have that positive outlook, but to influence other people to have it as well. That's a gift from God. Just as a child is. And obviously, I think her story is incredible and inspiring. But what is so special about her? Why does she get all this recognition and no other mothers do? Because she did lose her eyesight, and that's a terrible thing. But what about all the other mothers who have children and sacrifice for their children? So many women today, as many that don't go through with it, so many women do get pregnant and have their baby despite what their circumstances are. A woman might get pregnant and regret it and say, I wish I'd been smarter, but this is my mistake, and why should my baby have to pay for it? And they do choose life, and they have that baby, and they lose maybe the father of that baby, or a family member or two, or stability. Maybe they lose money and they have to pick up another job. These are all things that women lose every single day for giving life. And yes, Gail McWilliams' story is amazing. But she's getting recognition for things that women do every single day. And in Gail McWilliams' case, it's almost even easier, because if it were me, I would much rather give up my eyesight than maybe the father of my child. There's no doubt in my mind that I would rather be blind with a stable, supporting father than to have my eyesight and to have to raise a child on my own. Because one, that's selfishly, that's hard for me to do. And two, it's bad for the child. At least Gail McWilliams' kids had a father and a stable home. No, their mom couldn't see, but she was still a wonderful mother. But what about the other women who give up things every single day for their kids, to have their kids? I wish that they got the recognition that Gail McWilliams gets. Even if or that maybe Tim Tebow's mother gets. Tim Tebow's mom, when she was pregnant with him in the Philippines, the doctor told her, "You need to abort this baby, or you're not going to live." And she said, "Well, no, it's not a choice. I'm already pregnant. It's not my call to make." And she had a son who grew up to be a famous athlete, and that's an amazing story too, but does she deserve all the recognition that she does just because her son is famous? No, she deserves that recognition because she chose life. Just like so many women deserve around the world today. But I'll move away from Gail McWilliams. I just think that she's somebody that a name that people should know and people should hear. And also think about all the other women that deserve the credit that she gets. But let's talk about the history of abortion and its key player, Planned Parenthood. They live off of each other, abortion and Planned Parenthood. Not that there would be no abortion without Planned Parenthood, but there would be no Planned Parenthood without abortion. There would still be abortion without Planned Parenthood, but significantly less abortion. Planned Parenthood was established by a woman named Margaret Sanger in 1916. And I'm sure most of you have heard of Planned Parenthood, but I don't think that many of you have heard of Margaret Sanger. And you should. And if you have, you've heard of her, but even less of you have heard about her. Which is fine. I wouldn't expect anybody to have heard about her, but you should. To put things in perspective, though, for you, about where our nation is and who we have elected to lead us, I'll share a quote from my very good friend Russ's political crush, Hillary Rodham Clinton. She spoke of Margaret Sanger at the 2009 Planned Parenthood Honors Gala, saying, "I admire her enormously for her courage, her tenacity, and her vision." She admires her enormously. But what was Sanger's vision? Hillary didn't enlighten us on what the vision was that she admired so enormously. Her vision was actually formed from a base consisting of racism and eugenics. Does that sound familiar at all? Eugenics is a belief in the possibility of improving the quality of the human species or population, especially by such means as discouraging reproduction by having genetic defects or those presumed to have inheritable undesirable traits. Basically getting rid of the idiots or the criminals and the minorities. Does that sound familiar yet? So, why is Sanger regarded as such a hero by the left and the liberals? Don't they consider themselves to be the protectors of the minorities and the less fortunate? I thought so. I mean, that's what they say all the time. They'll never let you forget that. Well, Planned Parenthood was first established in Brooklyn, and from there they continued to grow. They were placed in low-income neighborhoods where at the time the majority of the residents were African American. That doesn't just happen. That's not by accident that they were placed there. In Sanger's book, Birth Control and Morality, which I find unbelievably ironic because I don't think there's anything correlated between birth control and morality. But in her book, Birth Control and Morality, she says, birth control must lead to a higher individuality and ultimately a cleaner race. So if you don't recognize it now, it sounds to me like she's reading a page straight out of Adolf's playbook. But even to this day, 3 out of 5 African American pregnancies end in abortion. African Americans only take up 12% of the population in the United States, yet they account for 36% of abortions. 12% of the population in the United States accounts for 36% of the abortions. 3 out of 5 African American pregnancies end in abortion. That's 60% of African American pregnancies. That doesn't just happen. They were targeted since day one, since the beginning of Planned Parenthood, by its racist founder, who thought they were a lesser race that needed to be exterminated to establish, quote, a cleaner race. They didn't lead to the higher individuality that Sanger was talking about in Birth Control and Morality. And they wouldn't contribute to a cleaner race. But if you don't believe me, if that all weren't enough, in a 1939 letter to Dr. Clarence Gamble, a doctor working on developing new ways of contraception, excuse me, Sanger writes, "We do not want word to go out that we are trying to exterminate the Negro population." So there's that. That's pretty in your face. I don't really know how you dispute that. Those are her own words. And if you don't believe any of this or anything I'm saying, you can look it up yourself. It's out there. You just have to do a little bit of research. I can't help but wonder, what would Sanger say about the one person that's keeping her business alive today? He's the head of our country and a Negro that at the time she would have wished to exterminate, I'm sure. But he's the one person who's keeping her business alive. If that's not ironic, I don't know what is. So what is Planned Parenthood like today? If you ask just about anyone who has a basic idea what Planned Parenthood is, they probably tell you, well, you know, they provide health services like cancer screenings, testing for STDs, and affordable birth control. Wow. Affordable birth control. Wow, what a miracle, right? Or when somebody really doesn't know what they're talking about, you might get a Planned Parenthood helps millions of women every year. No. No, they don't. They don't help one woman a year, let alone millions. In the case of Planned Parenthood, the bad will always outweigh the good every single time. And I'm using air quotes when I say the word good because there's nothing good about Planned Parenthood. Nothing. And what you might think is good is just a disguise to mask what's bad. A bad tree cannot bear good fruit, ever. Ever. And Planned Parenthood is a bad tree. It always has been and it always will be. A bad tree cannot bear good fruit. That's Matthew 7:18. And in Matthew 7:19, it says, any tree that does not produce good fruit is to be cut down and thrown into the fire. So why? Why are we not cutting down this tree and throwing it into the fire? Not only that, but why are we growing and nurturing this tree? It yields no good fruit for this country, and not only that, but it wastes resources in producing bad fruit. Ask any farmer in California, where I'm from, or in the country. Would they ever waste their resources in producing fruit or produce that wouldn't give them a profit, that wouldn't appeal to other people? So why are we doing that? Why are we wasting our resources nurturing a bad tree? Because it cannot bear good fruit. Matthew 7:18. Guess how much we spend on abortions per year? Just think of a number in your head of what you might think we spend on abortions per year. 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, even $200 million. We spend $549 million on abortions every year. Take that number that you just thought of in your head and compare it to $549 million per year. It's unbelievable. Imagine all the cancer screenings and STD testing and STD treatment that we could buy with $549 million a year. That's spent on abortion. And that'd be unbelievable if it wasn't our money anyway, but that is your money. That's what your money is being spent on. And most of you don't even know it. If somebody came up to you in the grocery store and said, "Hey, can I get $10 because I'm not going to tell you what it's for, but can I just get $10 because you're a tax-paying citizen and you owe that to me?" Would you give it to him? Would you pull out 2 5s and say, "Hey, yeah, go ahead. I don't know what you're going to spend this on, but you deserve it"? No way. No way would you do that. That's why most people don't give money to homeless people who are standing out on the corner freezing, begging for money. Because you look at them and you say, "Man, I don't know. Are they going to buy food with this? Or are they going to take it back to their family? Or are they just going to go buy cigarettes or alcohol or drugs somewhere? Nah, I'm just going to assume the bad. I bet they're going to go get drunk after this. My money. I work for this money. I'm not giving it to these people. I don't know what they're going to spend it on." So why are you doing that now? This bad tree was planted by a racist, but today, it's in the garden of feminists. It's only grown and progressed upon the back of feminism. Without feminist backing, we wouldn't have had over 56 million taxpayer-funded abortions in the last 41 years. Yes, we would have had abortions, obviously. There's no way to prevent it completely, as sad as that is. But there are ways to stop it legally and lower those numbers. 56 million? Wow. The feminists who mask this as empowerment or the right of a woman are hiding nothing more than government-subsidized murder. And again, I don't know what else to call it. If I had another word for it, I'd use it, trust me. But I don't. And yeah, you can argue with me all about the services that Planned Parenthood provides. But let me tell you something. Without abortion, they would not survive. They wouldn't. The abortion industry is the lifeblood of Planned Parenthood, and they know it. They know it. And that's not just my opinion or my assumption that they probably know that they depend on abortion to survive. That's a fact. If you don't take my word for it, listen to the testimony of a former abortion clinic director. A former abortion clinic director who had not seen an abortion for 10 years. That's like trusting a personal trainer who hasn't run in 10 years. Why are you're going to go trust somebody with your body? Somebody to help you who doesn't even know what they're talking about or what's going to happen? Carol Everett, a former abortion clinic director, lays it out for you. I'll let you hear it. This is the plan that abortion clinics use to up the number of paying customers that they get. It's unreal. It's scary. It really is. But I'll let you hear it for yourself.
Plan that sold abortions, and it was called sex education. Break down their natural modesty, separate them from their parents and their values, and become the sex expert in their life, so they turn to us when we would give them a low-dose birth control pill they would get pregnant on, or a defective condom, because we didn't buy the most expensive condoms, we bought the cheapest condoms. Our goal was 3 to 5 abortions from every girl between the ages of 13 and 18. We gave them a low-dose birth control pill that in order to provide any level of activity had to be taken at the same time every single day. The girl wouldn't take it accurately, and if you miss that thing, the protection is out of her system. The sexual activity goes from 0 or once a week to 5 to 7 times a week. She doesn't take the pill properly. She gets pregnant. And who does she call when she's pregnant? She calls us. We're the experts. And we were ready. We used a script designed to overcome every single objection. That's what sales is. Overcome the objection and you get the order, in this case, the abortion. And when she calls, the first question is reassure. And so the girl confesses, I think I may be pregnant. And the counselor, who's really a telemarketer, that's all they're trained to do, sell over the telephone, but we call them counselors, says, we can take care of your problem. No one needs to know. And then the first question, what's the first day of your last normal period? And she gives this so-called counselor the date, and she says you're 8 weeks pregnant. She didn't say you might be 8 weeks pregnant. She didn't say you could be. She said you are 8 weeks pregnant. So she has planted the first seed in this long marketing thread. And the sad thing is, in this girl's mind, she is the expert. This is the pregnancy expert. And the next question is this good news or bad news? If it were good news, she would not be calling an abortion clinic. It's bad news. And when she replies bad news, this counselor moves right in, because now she wants to identify the fear, to use it to reaffirm that abortion decision anytime that girl moves away. And if she says, well, maybe I need to think about this, your parents will kill you, you'll have to miss drill team, the abortion is so.
The abortion is sold. You heard it for yourself. That's what sales is, she said. Overcoming objection. Overcoming objection. So if there's an objection, and a girl says, I don't know if I want to have an abortion. Well, isn't that a choice? And by overcoming the objection, you're taking away her, quote, right to choose that you fight so hard for. So really, you only want women to have a right to choose if they're choosing what you want. Overcoming the objection. She says that's all that sales is. These girls are calling what we call counselors, who are really just telemarketers. Well, telemarketers work for businesses. They do whatever they can to get you to buy what they're selling. Not one of you listening right now has never had a telemarketer call your house, and you know how relentless they are. 99% of you hang up as soon as you find out it's a telemarketer, and the 1% of you only stay on the phone to give them a hard time. But as soon as you strap on the label counselor, then they're an expert waiting to help you. These girls are at their most vulnerable, and these counselors have sized them up and plan on using their vulnerability for profit. Empowering women, huh? Sounds like with the use of a pre-written script, they're doing everything they can to take away from young women, to take away what power that they do have, rather than provide them with power. It's fake. This fake power that's presented to them is nothing but brainwash and control, under the disguise of a counselor. It's evil and it's malicious, is what it is. It's just evil. They package it up in pretty wrapping, and they hand it over because they want it to be appealing to you. But it's nothing but control. They're taking away your power. And feminists will tell you, well, you should be proud to support abortion because it's a woman's right and it provides them with a sense of empowerment. I'm a woman, and I can tell you right now that in no way do I feel a sense of power having the ability to terminate my own child. It in no way gives me a sense of power. It makes me feel sick. To the people who say it provides women with a newfound power over themselves, I have to ask you, wouldn't nurturing and providing life warrant so much more power than it would to end a defenseless life? I mean, what power is there in ending a life that has no say or has no ability to protest it or to fight back? The only example I can think of having a power in killing is, I can think of two things. One is I can think of maybe in the Hunger Games, because that would be pretty powerful when someone's defending themselves against you and you have to kill them to survive. And the other is to actually survive. If you maybe kill in self-defense or you wound someone in self-defense, there's maybe power in that because you've prepared yourself and you're ready for it. And you have the right to do so. But to kill a defenseless, innocent, powerless life? Where's the power in that? There's not. To end the life of your own child almost shows a lack of power you actually have. No, it does show the lack of power you actually have. It shows that you don't even have power enough to care for and nurture your child for a short 9 months until birth. You don't have to keep this child and raise it. All you have to do is give it a home for 9 months. That's it. There are millions of people out there waiting for a child. So, one, you're going to take the life of your own child, and two, you're going to take away motherhood and fatherhood from parents who are out there willing and wanting to give it. That actually makes me livid, because as someone who hopes to be a future mother, if I find out one day that I can't have kids and that other people are out there abusing their privilege that they've been given to be a mother, That makes me unspeakably mad. Who are you to say that you are just going to throw away this privilege that you've been given? You're not. Honestly, though, I have to say, strictly from a business perspective, Planned Parenthood really does have something going for them in terms of bringing in income. I mean, it really is genius, like, if you think about it. They're the biggest distributor of birth control in the United States, and out of the contraceptives that they distribute, over 2 million of them fail every year. So let's think about this. They've been in business since 1916. And over 2 million of their products fail every year. So there's one of two options here. One, they're not very good at their trade. Because you'd think, since 1916, they should have developed their product and improved it. I mean, it's almost been 100 years. You don't think they could have improved it to not have 2 million of their products fail every year? Or two, it's deliberate. I'm going to go with two because no business that's been around for 100 years has ever progressed that slowly. So it has to be deliberate. And for 2 million of their contraceptives to fail every year actually serves them good. It helps them in the end. 2 out of 3 women who seek an abortion conceive that child using a contraceptive that failed. So think about this. They, 1, distribute a product. 2, the product fails the customer. And then you offer that dissatisfied customer another, quote, solution. And again, I'm using quotes around the term solution because it by no means is a solution, but rather another much more permanent and fatal problem. And they know that these women have nowhere else to go. They stay in business for 2 reasons. 1, because they're the sole proprietor of abortions. And 2, because we elect people who keep them in business. And shame on us. Shame on us for that. Because we do have a say and we can do something about it and we don't. But like I said, as a business, it really is genius. Distribute a product, that product fails, and when they have nowhere else to go, once that product fails, they come back to you. But for a much more serious and expensive procedure. So people think it's great. Yeah, they give out free condoms and free birth control. Well, of course they give it out for free. They can afford it because it makes them money in the end. But how long would an ordinary company like this last if they didn't issue warnings or warranties on their products? There are government mandated warnings on everything these days. Cigarettes, alcohol, medication. A police officer can even pull me over and penalize me for not wearing a seatbelt to protect my own life. But it's my own life. I'm a woman and I should have a say over my own body, right? I mean, I can do what I want with it. Why should I be forced to wear my seatbelt? If I choose to buy a car, get in that car, not wear my seatbelt, and floor it into a brick wall, I should be able to because it's my body and I can do what I want with it. If I'm not wearing a seatbelt and I crash into somebody else and they have chosen to wear their seatbelt, it's not my fault because they'll have their seatbelt on. They chose to wear their seatbelt. But if I don't have my seatbelt on and something happens to me, well, that's my own choice. It's my own body. So you're going to force me to wear my seatbelt when I should have the ultimate say over my body? I guess it doesn't apply all across the board, does it? All these government mandated warnings list the potential health risks of these things. But I wonder why Planned Parenthood doesn't ever mention the fact that in the year following an abortion, women are 6 times more likely to commit suicide. That's not even just to attempt suicide, which is actually a much higher number. They're just 6 times more likely to successfully commit suicide. I guess it makes sense, though. Why would you tell customers all the things that would deter them from using your product? I mean, does McDonald's tell you all the toxins they use in their food and all the health risks that there are to excessively binging on their food? No. They wouldn't be the business they are today if they did that. But Planned Parenthood doesn't have a competition. They don't have to do that. People will still go to them for abortions. Not everyone has to go to McDonald's for a burger. Think about this. For every 150 women that go in to seek an abortion, how many do you think receive an adoption referral? I would have said 20, 25, which is terrible out of 150. But the actual number? 1. Out of every 150 that seek an abortion, 1 is given an adoption referral. And that's not like when someone who works at Planned Parenthood says, okay, I've had 149 patients, so this next one coming in, I'll give her an adoption referral. No. That's 1 person out of every 150 Planned Parenthood employees that has even a sliver of a conscience is telling women that an option open to them is adoption. And that's pathetic. But why would they suggest adoption? If they suggest adoption, they receive less funding. If they suggest adoption, how are they going to get their $549 million a year? They're not. If women are out there having babies and giving them up for adoption, Planned Parenthood's going right out of business. The second that women start having babies for the purpose they were intended to, which is to start a family, Planned Parenthood is gone. They're gone. That's why not promote birth control? Because you can live the lifestyle that you want without having to get married, without having to start a family. Why do you think sex ed started in the United States? To promote sex younger and younger. Not to promote safety. Most kids don't know what sex is until sex education, so you're just teaching them about sex. You're not teaching them how to be safe. So Planned Parenthood, are you really helping women? Are you helping them? Does it help them to deprive them of knowing all the information? No. I don't think so. women weren't being helped into having the choice of an abortion, then Planned Parenthood wouldn't be making their $550 million a year. And I'm going to keep saying that number because every single time I do, it shocks me, and it should shock you too. The fact that we're giving any taxpayer, any money at all to Planned Parenthood is appalling. But any taxpayer money? If we were giving them $1 out of taxpayer money, it would still be astounding. But the fact is, we're giving them $549 million of taxpayer dollars. That's $549 million funding genocide in the United States. You hear about the Holocaust all the time. And what a terrible, terrible thing that was. When we're living in a country that's had a genocide going on for 41 years. But why aren't we talking about that? And when I say our money is going to funding abortions, I'm wrong. Because I'm thinking about it, and it's not our money anymore. We're so in debt, that ship has sailed long ago. No, now we're robbing our future generations to pay for this. So we're robbing from our future generations so that we can slaughter their potential brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, friends, and anything else, anyone else. And they're the ones who are paying for it. Imagine that. Think about your husband or your wife or your best friend or your brother or your sister. Think about paying to have them killed and not having the choice to do so. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, come on, Kayla, you're being a little dramatic. Okay. So you think that. Come on, Kayla, it's just a clump of cells. But let me tell you something. We're all clumps of cells or blobs of tissue. I'm a blob of tissue. You're a blob of tissue. Actually, the only thing that's different between us and a child in the mother's womb is that he or she is in the mother's womb. That's it. If anything, we're the ones who should be more vulnerable than they are. If God thought that a baby in the womb was nothing more than a clump of cells, then why would he attach them to another human being for the most fragile 9 months of their lives? He wouldn't. He wouldn't have. Why, if they're a blob of tissue, would they be separated from the rest of the world inside their mother's womb? The safest place in the world. I'll tell you why. Because they need to be and were meant to be protected. And we're not protecting them, we're killing them. And that is just how it is. It's black and white. They're not living, they're dying. Every day. Every single day. So, to all you pro-abortionists out there, I ask you, why don't you try supporting the rights of women, but the real rights? The rights we were blessed enough to be born with. The rights that were given to us by God rather than a judge somewhere. You see, the law comes from our Constitution, and our Constitution comes from moral and religious men who adamantly express that that is exactly who it was intended for. In a letter to the officers of the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division of the Militia of Massachusetts, John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." But we aren't a moral and religious people today. And our Constitution is slowly becoming inadequate. The law governs the court. The court does not govern the law. But that's exactly where we went wrong 41 years and 2 days ago. The Supreme Court gave a right that was never in the Constitution to begin with. In that case, the court governed the law, and that is exactly where we lose our freedom. When the courts start to overrule the law, then we're being governed by the courts and we have no say. It's shocking to see how far we've come since our country was founded on those moral principles. And I hate to hear people out there, celebrities like Sarah Silverman saying, well, actually, no, using Jesus who curses, and it's just disgusting. Celebrities out there saying, well, I hate people who use religion and God to further their agenda. It's not furthering our agenda. It's what our country was based on. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. Go somewhere else, Sarah Silverman. If you don't like it, leave. You're free to leave. That's what's great about this country. And I know she'll never hear this. I know most people will never hear this. I'm basically just talking to my family, which is fine. But at least I'm talking. At least I'm saying something about it. Martin Luther King said in his I Have a Dream speech, he said, our lives begin to end the day that we become silent about things that matter, and this matters. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Right out of his I Have a Dream speech. It's one of the lesser known quotes by him. But you know what? This does matter. And I will keep talking about it. Even if nobody hears me, that's okay. I hope they do. And I'll work so that they do, but if nobody wants to listen, I guess that's just what we're slowly coming to that. It does give me hope, though, that we still have people out there that, like those who were at the march, that are willing to stand up for all life. Because, like, I said, if you say you're pro-life and you don't act like it, then you're pro-abortion. You are. I'm going to say it again. There's no black and white here. If you say you're pro-life, but, I'm pro-life because I would never have an abortion, well, okay, that's great. That's good. Never have an abortion. But, someone else, if they want to have one, that's their right. That's their choice. Well, then you're not pro-life. You're pro-abortion. Because you're only pro-life if you stand up for all life, not just some life. If all the people at the March for Life were pro-life in that way, then there would be nobody there. Because then you'd say, well, I don't need to go to the life because, well, I'd never have an abortion, so I don't need to go. Why would I go if I'd never have an abortion? You go and you stand up and you talk and you raise awareness, not just there, but in your life every day because of the people that would have an abortion. Because you're standing up for those lives. So, like I said, it does give me hope that there are people out there that do feel like that and that are truly pro-life. But we're a long way from being where we need to be. Because if we don't value life, then we don't value anything. That's the basis of everything. Think about the most important things and the most important people in your life. You talk about them all the time. You'd do anything for them. You'd fight for them. Maybe you'd even die for them. I know I would. The most important people in my life. I'd take a bullet for my friends and family. But I wouldn't have any of those things had it not been for life. If my mom had not chosen to give me life, I would have none of those things. So to fight for those things and for those people, I fight for life. If you don't stand up for life, then you stand for death. It's black and white. And you can tell me I'm dramatic. And you can tell me that's not true, but at the end of the day, it is. It is. So, I'll leave you with that thought. And I'm going to say it one more time. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Thank you for listening to The Connection. I'll see you next week.